Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the backdrop of Pope Francis' funeral, where the pontiff was laid to rest at St. Mary Major Basilica on Saturday. According to Associated Press, it comes as U.S. President Donald Trump and Zelensky met privately on the sidelines. A photo showed the two men sitting alone, facing one another and hunched over on chairs in St. Peter's Basilica, where Francis often preached the need for a peaceful end to Russia's war in Ukraine. Trump said on Saturday that he doubts Russia's Vladimir Putin wants to end his war in Ukraine, expressing new skepticism that a peace deal can be reached soon. Only a day earlier, Trump had said Ukraine and Russia were very close to a deal. There was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities and towns, over the last few days, Trump said in a social media post as he flew back to the United States after attending Pope Francis' funeral at the Vatican. Trump also hinted at further sanctions against Russia. According to Vatican estimates, some 250,000 people flocked to the funeral mass at the Vatican and 150,000 more lined the motorcade route through downtown Rome to witness the first funeral procession for a pope in a century.
What age are they? So I was 14 and 16. Yes. Yeah. Okay. But in Kyiv, that like voltage. But I'm pushing hard. I'm sure we can do it. It's really.
Mr. President, how did the meeting with Trump go?
Really we had a productive meeting. I don't want to go to a lot of details if it's possible, because the questions, very sensitive questions on, of course, totally it's about how to bring peace closer and how was resultative, positive Paris and London, and we want to continue such meetings to bring peace to Ukraine.
Okay, let's move on.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met on Saturday before the funeral service for Pope Francis in the Vatican, according to Zelensky's press office. According to Associated Press, White House Communications Director Stephen Chung confirmed the meeting and said they met privately today and had a very productive discussion. More details about the meeting will follow, he said. Shortly after arriving in Rome last Friday, Trump said on social media that Ukraine and Russia should meet for very high-level talks on ending the three-year war sparked by Russia's invasion. His envoy, Steve Witkoff, met with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier Friday, and Trump said both sides were very close to a deal. U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky both attended the funeral of Pope Francis at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican in front row on Saturday. According to Associated Press, Pope Francis is being laid to rest Saturday in ceremony consistent with his priorities as Pope and personal wishes as pastor. Presidents and princes will attend the funeral at St. Peter's Square, but ordinary faithful and a group of 40 migrants, prisoners, homeless and transgender people will be the privileged ones to welcome him to his final resting place at the St. Mary Major Basilica across town where he loved to go to pray. The Mass at St. Peter's will be attended by world leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, and followed by a coffin procession to St. Mary Major with camera positions along its route. Among the world leaders attending, U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania, French President Emmanuel Macron, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, UK's Prince William, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, First Lady Alina Zelenska, President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen, Italian President Sergio Mattarella, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, German Parliament Speaker Julia Klöckner, Polish President Andrzej Duda and the First Lady, Agata Kornhauser-Duda, Austrian President Alexander van der Bellen, Austrian Chancellor Christian Stocker, Swiss President Karen Keller-Sutter, Croatian President Zoran Milanovic, Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos, Hungarian President Thomas Suliak, Irish President Michael D. Higgins, Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin, Irish Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris, Kosovo President Vjosa Osmani Sadriu, Spanish King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia, Hungarian politician Peter Magyar, Kenya President William Ruto and former U.S. President Joe Biden.
isola simbolo del dramma dell'emergenza, con migliaia di persone annegate in mare. Nella stessa linea è stato anche il viaggio a Lesbos, insieme con il patriarca